What's up, everybody? This is the Wrestling Exchange, the most electrifying podcast in all of sports entertainment. My name is Ted, and I'm joined with, as always,
Papo. Welcome back, everybody.
Oh, man, we had an awesome week. We had an awesome episode, sort of, kind of, depending on your views, which we'll get into that in just a few moments. Papo, how excited are you to get into this week's Raw?
Okay, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today about Monday's Raw. I want to talk about this, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the main event, which had me at the edge of my seat. So, Ted, let's go ahead and get this ball rolling.
Getting this ball rolling. There is one thing. Actually, you know what? No. We'll just start at the beginning of the show, because I have a little rant here that I'm going to exercise in a moment, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, the opening match, it's a cage match between Y2J, Chris Jericho, and Bray Wyatt. And, of course, the Wyatt family, Eric Rowan, Luke Harper. They had advertised this match last week. They were basically saying, hey, here's the cage match. Before we get into the actual events of the cage match, what were your overall thoughts of it? I'm curious.
Season premiere, starting off with a cage match that is off the hook. Let me tell you, these two stepped into that cage, and it was hellacious. Let me tell you, they went at it back and forth. I mean, it was pay-per-view material. So I'm kind of curious to know your thoughts on this, Ted, because I enjoyed this match.
I'm glad you asked, because I loved it, but it's funny because I didn't start off liking it. For me, I don't know why, but it started off kind of very slow, and I was really puzzled as to why this would be, first of all, why Bray Wyatt and Chris Jericho would be the open the show, and more specifically, why a cage match would open the show. And actually, we would come to find out why that would be, because that would play into the show later on. But as a cage match itself, yeah, man, I thought it was good. It took a few moments, in my opinion, to get it moving. There was one thing that kind of didn't seem right. Basically, about 2 minutes into the match, Bray Wyatt starts running for the door, and like Chris Jericho hasn't even been what's the word I'm looking? Incapacitated. He just starts yelling, open the door, which I thought was really weird. I got a question for you. Before we get into the match, are you like me in the fact that I miss the old cage with the bars?
Oh, yeah. I mean, with the bars, it gave a sense of, how should I put it, drama to the cage match. It looked a little bit more easier to climb instead of just a chain link normal fence that you see at a normal playground or in your backyard, etc., etc. But with this whole chain link fence, it gives it a sense of a street fight-ish, if you will.
It does.
But the classic bars give it a sense of drama, where it was easier to climb out of the cage, easier to climb into the cage. But with the chain link fence, I mean, it gives it that no-hold-barred feeling of a street fight. So, I mean, it fits perfect to if there's a grudge match going on, in which this was.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think they should keep both cages. Like, I think they should bring back the old cage, just because I think in a lot of ways it lent itself to some really interesting stuff. Like, you could tie a guy's leg up in the cage, and he could start hanging from it, and, while the other guy's climbing, and all sorts of stuff like that. But basically, we had a pretty knockdown, drag-out match. This was a cage match in the sense of not only can you win by escaping either over the top and onto the floor, through the door, but you could also win by pinfall or submission. Now, if you're escaping the cage, obviously both feet have to touch the floor, as is very much so with an over-the-top Battle Royal, or more specifically the Royal Rumble. So basically, we had Harper and Rowan on the outside. In a lot of ways, this was actually very similar to the match Bray had with Cena, if I'm not mistaken, at Extreme Rules, I think it was. The one that ended with the little kid singing afterwards. But basically they did some really interesting stuff here. There was one point where Y2J gets to the top of the cage, and then you see the other two Wyatts, Rowan and Harper, they come around, and he realizes that he's kind of screwed, and he has no other way to get out of it. And I loved it because he has this gesture, like he decides to stand on top of the cage, and he looks down, and he does like one of these, like, why not? Fuck it. And he just dives off the top, crossbody, and kind of, I don't know whether he landed on his knee or whether him and Bray like hit heads, but it looked nasty. Like it definitely wasn't how it's supposed to. Although I don't know how well you could be prepared to catch someone who's jumping 20 feet off of a steel cage. But yeah, man, I thought it was really cool. I liked that the end, instead of the typical, pull the guy back or I forget which one. I know this was a Bret Hart one. I think it might have been Bret Hart and Diesel, where one guy's going out the door and the other guy is climbing over the top. I've always dug that. They didn't do that here, but what they did do was that after that crossbody, when it looked like Jericho hurt his leg, Bray kind of tied him up. Or not tied him up, but they both at some point later in the match got beat up pretty bad. And they're like crawling to the door. They open the door, and then they're doing something that I've never seen, and the fact that they were like fighting on top of each other in the doorway, which I thought was really neat. And then Bray starts punching the hell out of Jericho's leg, and then eventually like just kind of rolls over top of him onto the floor, and then proceeds to drag Jericho back in and just putting a hurting on him. I think he slammed his leg in the cage door and beat him up pretty bad. Do you think that this would have been better had they used it later on in the night, or do you think this was just the thing to wake that crowd up for the rest of the show?
I think it was a perfect movie, especially for a season premiere. That was awesome. I mean, it definitely got my attention, and I couldn't get up for the rest of the Raw. I was sucked in after that one match. And, I mean, the whole situation where they were battling to get out of the cage, out the door, that was hilarious. Let me tell you, I had to laugh at it for a second. And I'll tell you straight up, I am a Jericho-holic, but when White slammed his knee in the fence, I started to laugh. I mean, because I was expecting it. I was waiting for it the whole match. I'm like, somebody's going to get hit with a door. Somebody's going to get hit with a door. Bam!
Yeah, the hit with the door spot, that's always one of my favorites. The only one that I really didn't like, and I can't remember it might have been a Raw, it might have been a pay-per-view, but I think it was Cactus Jack and a member of DX, or he wasn't Cactus Jack at this point, I think he was just Mankind, and he had his head in the doorway, and China like slammed the door on his head, and it just bothers me looking at it to this day. I worry about McFoley. Now, you said something. You said it twice, and I was going to save this rant for later, but just because you said it twice, I'm just going to let loose. You mind if I just take a minute and just go for it?
Rage.
How many weeks are in a year? 52 weeks. 52 weeks.
52.
Right? 52.
I knew that, 52.
52. It's a magic number. WWE RAW, specifically, is on 52 weeks a year. That doesn't matter if it's Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever holiday, New Year's, whatever, what have you. No matter what holiday falls on a Monday, it is always 52 weeks a year. There is no off-season, right?
No, not for WWE.
Okay, good. Good. We're getting there. We're getting there. There's another show on television that airs weekly. I couldn't tell you which day of the week it airs, but I know it airs weekly, and it's been forever and a day. It's called 60 Minutes, okay? It's a weekly show. It's exactly 60 minutes, and it airs 52 weeks a year. In the past, when doing interviews, people, members of the WWE roster, superstars, if you will, would basically, when they were asked about the legitimacy of the sport or the level of entertainment or the level of dangerousness or the level of choreography, so to speak, they would always take pride in saying that we don't have an off-season. You know, We're not like the NFL. We're not like the NBA, the NHL, the Major League Baseball. We go all year long.
Non-stop.
Question. For a show that goes 52 weeks a year, live, no off-season, can anyone please tell me, in my angry state of mind at the moment, how the fuck do you get a series premiere on a show that has no off-season?
It don't make no sense. Like an empty pocket.
You mean like an empty pocket with a hole in it, or just like having a pocket and not using it?
No sense in an empty pocket. No money, dude.
Oh, okay. No, that's not a fake laugh. I just didn't get it until just now. I like that. I like the way you think. Yeah, this bothered me because they proceeded to say it probably at least more than 15 times. I mean, it was... I understand... Like, a lot of people give Michael Cole and JBL hell, right? And Jerry Lawler, too, because they're like, oh, they suck on commentary. And I disagree. I actually think they're really good, especially because you have that kind of... You have JBL, who's the obvious, he's the heel, right? He's just going to naturally just go to... He's naturally going to side with the heels on just about everything. You have Jerry Lawler, who is just going to side with John Cena no matter what. And then you have Michael Cole, who sides with the good guys, but also is supposed to be play-by-play. So you have one play-by-play, two color guys. And color, the difference is that play-by-play is the guy who's supposed to be calling the moves, and a color guy basically means that you're kind of enhancing the conversation, right? So you have two guys in that conversation that are former professional wrestlers, and the fact that they don't compete actively, which means they have really unique insight. For example, if somebody puts a certain hold on someone and they've felt that hold, they can attest to what it does, if it cuts off circulation. For example, someone puts on a sleeper. They can accurately describe, as being a former competitor, that it cuts off the circulation to your brain, room starts getting dark, sound starts fading, very much like a
double leg takedown.
Like a double... Oh, man. I love it. So, yes, but they're really good. But the problem is that what people have against them is the fact that they're made to say stupid shit, right? What some people might not know is that these guys are being called what's being called produced, which means that not only are they watching the monitor, which is the same thing we're seeing on the television, cut for cut from camera to camera, but also they have direct feed back to Vince or whoever's the main producer of the show at the moment, who's telling them what to say and guiding them and how to say it. So when they say really dumb stuff and people hate that, that's not because they're bad at their job. It's because they're encouraged to say something that we're really sick of, like explaining how to use an app on a smartphone in 2014 when people kind of know this. You don't need to explain it. It's like, how do I set up a Gmail account? Well, it's super easy. It's self-explanatory. Go there, click, type, click, done. Not that hard. At least not something that has to be reinforced weekly. So in this episode, or this week's episode, they constantly say that it's the season premiere. And it's just, I know it's someone in the truck or backstage telling them. I don't know how, unless this plays into the Total Divas. But yes, that's the end of my rant. And I am very... very annoyed, and woosah, I'm done. Anyway, we had a segment. Dolph Ziggler. Well, what did you think about the Dolph Ziggler segment? Because I have some thoughts on that, and I really want to hear what you thought about it.
Okay. Let me tell you, this bit was hilarious. Showing pictures of The Miz in unsavory photos. Was it shaving? First one was shaving his chest. That was hilarious. And I'm sitting there thinking, who's taking the picture?
So this kind of, for those of you who don't know, this kind of plays into a larger issue that right now there's a story or stories that celebrities are getting their photos on their devices hacked, more specifically through their cloud. I still don't understand the cloud. I think it's like a dedicated server. You put stuff on, and it's on the internet, and it just kind of hangs out there. But celebrities, why I'll never know, put naked pictures of themselves in the clouds, or situationally compromising pictures, let's put it that way, of themselves. And then what happened is that someone was hacking them and putting them on the internet for other people to see. So they're kind of playing off of this. And did you notice that Damien Sandow, every time Miz pointed and gestured, was mirroring him?
For real. I was getting ready to start calling him Xerox. Were you apprehensive that they were going to start doing Photoshop? Like, you know how they'll like, oh, here's his face on a baby, and here's his face on a horse's ass, and like, I hate that. Was there ever any thought in your mind leading up to this that they were going to start doing that? Any sort of worry that like, oh no, here comes the terrible Photoshop humor? I was actually expecting that when it was going through, but when they showed the picture of Miz with his chest, with the shaving cream and the blade, I just died laughing. And I was so happy it was him actually taking a picture and not him on a horse's ass. But you got to tell him about the second picture. You got to tell him about the second picture. Tell him, Ted.
So the second picture, Miz, he looks like he's in his shower. I don't know if this is like in his hotel suite or his home or apartment or whatever, but it's a nice bathroom, at least the last pic, right? So he's in his shower, and he's supposedly bare-ass naked. I think he's probably wearing some sort of flesh-toned underwear, but they pixelated it out, so we'll say he's bare-ass. And Damien Mizdow is hitting him with the spray tan, and it was just hilarious because Miz is like, oh, spray tan my body, and Damien's like, I'll do anything you want me to do because I'm your stunt double, and I want to be just like you. And Miz just gets hot. He's just not having it. He threatens lawsuits. He basically says, you're invading my privacy. And then he gives this really weird look at Damien Sandow, and Damien's like, what, I'm your stunt double. Excuse me, Damien Mizdow. And he basically gives him this look back like, hey, I'm your stunt double. It all ends basically with not a repeat of last week, but a repeat of a strategy used last week, where last week, I think it was either last week or the week before, I was pretty sure it was last week, where Damien Mizdow tries to come in to the match and then gets told to get out by the ref, and then Ziggler hits him with a zigzag, and then Miz swoops in from behind. I like that they kind of maintain the continuity here because they pretty much did the same thing, except Ziggler caught on, right? So he drop kicks Damien Mizdow in the face, hits him with the zigzag, and then immediately turns around because he knows Miz is going to pounce on him, and Miz does the cowardly chicken shit heel thing where he kind of backs away slowly and up the ramp. I liked it. I really did. I thought it was kind of awkward, but I think it's one of those things where, although it may not have been the best written segment, Ziggler is a talented enough performer where he can take something that's not good and like polish a turd, so to speak, where something may be like a really bad idea or unfunny, and I don't know if it's his ability and his just relationship with the audience, but he's able to make that much better. I was very entertained by that. So, did you have any other thoughts about that segment?
None whatsoever. It was highly entertaining. I enjoyed it. That shit was funny as hell, and I'm waiting to see what falls through with this little skirmish between Ziggler and The Miz.
Yeah, I love it. I hope they don't stop anytime soon because I want to wait for that Miz versus Damien Mizdow feud to battle over who's the real Miz. I'm still waiting for that. I still got money on that horse, man. Next, we have a Divas match. This is supposedly hyping the Total Divas. I think on the WWE Network, they're up to season 2, maybe the first 2 or 3 episodes of season 2 tomorrow. I think they'll have another one up at like 8 or 9 or whatever. So it's Natalya and Rosa Mendez versus AJ Lee and Paige. Quick question, and maybe this is just for me, But were you as happy as I was that they did not put Eva Marie in this match?
Ecstatic. Put her back on the corner to vend hot dogs.
Not that Rosa Mendez is any better, but at least she's less terrible, right? I mean, she's not as bad.
The lesser of two evils.
So we're still getting this AJ Lee versus Paige feud. Basically, during the match, Paige kind of teases AJ. Paige is in the ring wrestling, and she hasn't tagged AJ yet. And she's basically saying, "Come on, AJ, tag yourself in. Come on, blah, 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 blah." And then basically, at one point, Paige is near the corner, and AJ reaches up and grabs Paige by the hair, and then it looked like she slapped her right across the tits to tag herself in. Did you catch that?
Yes, I did. I thought it was pretty cool. And then Homegirl got in and pulled out the Black Widow to win the match. I mean, it just left a sting in Paige's ass. I loved it. And we're all waiting for the full love scene starting to make up, so I'm ready for it.
Yeah, man. And then they do the weird sexual thing where I don't know if it probably is, where AJ gets the title and she kisses on it, and then Paige kind of gets it back and kisses on it. I really like the way this feud is going because, again, like we've mentioned before, it's basically enhancing the idea that we all know AJ's crazy. She's been with everybody in the locker room, kayfabe-wise, right? In storyline, she's been with Daniel Bryan, she's been with CM Punk. I think she's even been with Kane, John Cena at one point. And so Paige is trying to mess with AJ's head, and basically now AJ's like, you know what, Paige, you're right, I do love you. And now Paige is like, oh, crap, I have to deal with this crazy AJ baggage. So it is what it is. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. And that Black Widow that AJ has is just, ooh, that thing just looks incredibly painful. Next, we had a backstage segment with our boy Y2J. More of this season premiere stuff. What do you think about this backstage segment when him getting worked on by the trainer, basically checking out that knee and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a skit that held my attention, but what held my attention the most was when Randy Orton came in and just beat him down.
Beat him down
premiere,
hard.
They went all out. For real.
You go again saying it. Yeah, I mean, Randy Orton just kind of jumps him out of nowhere from behind and says, "Well, Chris, what can I say? It's the season premiere." And I've already said my piece about the season premiere, so I'm not going to go any further. But I do have a question, because I can't seem to make heads or tails of this, and I'm curious of your thoughts. We know that Jericho is only going to be around for a short time, right? Because he's a busy man. He's a rock star in real life. Is this a way to take Chris Jericho off of TV and put heat on Randy Orton, or is this a way to segue him out of that Bray Wyatt feud, since he lost the rubber match, and into a feud with Randy? I'm curious. I think I know I have an idea of what I'm thinking, but I'm curious as to your thoughts.
Well, it would be a nice way to transition him out of the feud with Wyatt and then get into a feud with Orton, which will leave Orton out of the feud with Roman Reigns. So Roman can focus more on Rollins. I mean, it just compels each other, and it's like a domino effect. Instead of going a straight line, they split off. And who's not to say that they'll go ahead and rekindle that feud later on. So, I mean, as of right now, I mean, Wyatt got the best of Jericho. Hate to say it, but he did. And regardless, I am a Jerichoholic. So, with that being said, Orton and Jericho, they start their feud, and the winner should come out to see who's going to be the next number one contender. And then that leaves Roman Reigns to feud with Rollins. and that's just straight Shield revenge right there.
I like where you're going. I really like the way you think. Question. Out of the two between Jericho and Orton, who should they feed? If it does go that way, I'm curious. Who would you rather see get fed to Brock Lesnar?
Ooh, that's a good one. I mean, as right now, Orton. Right now, Randy Orton. Between Jericho and Orton, I see Orton coming out on top, and then Brock Lesnar defending against Orton. I mean, I'm a Jericho-holic, but there's just something about Orton that makes me believe that he can actually take it to Lesnar and at least come close to a win. Instead of becoming a victim like Cena.
Oh, man, we're going to get there in a minute. I can already feel it coming from you, but we'll get there in a moment because you know what? We are getting there. What a wonderful segue, man. I didn't mean to cut you off. We got a promo between Paul Heyman and John Cena. I know there's a lot of people. Look, we all love Paul Heyman, okay? He's my favorite Jewish man in the wrestling business. My favorite. My absolute favorite. I love him. I want to get my hands on that new DVD. I think it's Ladies and Gentlemen, My Name is Paul Heyman. But I'd rather for it to come on the network because I know the last time I bought a DVD from them, like it was on the network shortly thereafter. So I don't want to do that and having to spend the money and then only come to me anyway for $9.99. So I will wait. But that being said, Paul Heyman's amazing, right? And a lot of people don't like John Cena, but I think they really have to give him his credit. How did you let's do this. What were your thoughts on their promo together and their just whole interaction?
Well, I like the outcome of how John Cena finished the segment, but the little banter between each other, I mean, it's getting repetitious now, especially from John Cena. I'm not going to the pay-per-view to beat Brock Lesnar. I'm going to beat blah, blah, blah. I'm done with it. I am so done with it.
And isn't that like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other? Like, isn't beating someone also beating their ass? Because if you go in there saying, I just want to beat his ass, that's like telling the audience, I know I have no chance of winning. I'm not guaranteeing a victory.
Well, you can lose and still kick somebody's ass. I mean, if he's not going in there to win the belt, then he's just going in there to hurt him as much as he can before he becomes a victim.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. Basically, we had a wonderful exchange, and there's actually a couple more things I wanted to get into. But so basically, it goes back and forth, and they're talking about Cena's game plan, and he basically says, "My game plan is 3 words: never give up." Boring, John Cena. We expect more of you. You're an amazing performer. You're really talented on the microphone. You can get a crowd that hates you and wants to see you die in a fire revved up really well. Him and Paul Heyman are actually really work very well off of each other, right? And the whole time, Paul Heyman...
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes! So basically, how did you, because we had talked about wanting to see this feud another match happen so long as it changes and kind of, not updates the character, but basically we get a little bit more depth out of the character. When they were going back and forth, and Heyman said, listen, Brock says I can tell you the secret to beating him because he doesn't think you got the stones to do it. You got to turn your back on the crowd. You got to tap into that hate, man. Those people that say you suck, you got to feed into that. You got to stop caring about the little kids. You got to stop caring about your wristbands and your hand and you can't see me. You got to stop caring about all that. You got to focus on fighting the beast incarnate, nay, dare I say, the conqueror himself. And he basically kind of, like antagonizes Cena and begs him. He's like, do whatever you got to do. And it's weird because he even says, I believe in you. It's weird because he even admits that he thinks actually John Cena may have a chance if he decides to just tap into that hate, go over to the dark side. And basically John Cena kind of goes into this thing about how I wouldn't do that because being John Cena is important to me. Making that Make-A-Wish kid, the kid who's asked for anything to wish for and yet he wants to hang out with me, that makes my day. Seeing kids in the audience and know that they came here because my morals taught them to work hard and do their homework so they could come to the show. Man, I'm into that. I was into it at that point, but do you think it took a really weird, kind of almost uncomfortable turn where he started talking about how he met a member of the armed forces who lost his leg and basically gave his Purple Heart to John Cena because of the hustle, loyalty, respect, and basically gave him the courage to keep going?
Yeah. Well, to answer that question, I actually got to take a step back. I mean, because we know John Cena's awesome on the mic, and he has skills in the ring to a point. He is the franchise also. But, I mean, honestly, I give it to John Cena because he has paid his dues. He's earned respect from the wrestlers, and he can go. But, again, I'm kind of on Heyman's side when he said that he has to tap into that hate. Yeah, I mean, he has to. I mean, if it's to beat Brock Lesnar.
I'm sorry. You started to cut out. Can you go back to what you said when you started? You said you started to sigh, and then it kind of dropped off after that. Could you pick it up right there? I couldn't hear you.
Okay, I was on Paul Heyman's side when he
okay.
said he has to tap into that hate. He's gonna. I mean, honestly, he's gonna have to. He has to get as close to a heel turn as possible to even come close to beating Brock Lesnar. He needs to let everything go and just 2 men enter, 1 man leave. He has to have that mentality. But the way he is, and I know, he's not going to cross that line. He needs to get total Wolverine on somebody's ass. The perfect anti-hero.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, right? Because I was right behind Heyman because I think now that I think about it, this was a really smart thing that the WWE did. Now that the wheels are kind of turning in this brain of mine, because they're giving their wink, wink. Oh, hey guys, you want to see him turn heel? Because that's never gonna happen. Never gonna happen. I'm convinced of it. If it hasn't happened by now, it's not gonna happen unless the kids that like him now start doing what they did to Hogan in '96, where he's just getting booed out of the building by everyone, not just booed by the adults, cheered by the little kids. It's probably going to be another 10 years before the little kids get sick of him. But
probably.
And they probably have another crop of young kids coming up at that point, so who the hell knows, right? But it's almost like a nod to the fact that yes, we understand you're sick of John Cena as he is right now, as the character is. That it's very white meat, very stale, very bland, very boring, almost to the point of say your prayers and eat your vitamins, Hulksters. It needs something. It doesn't need a full-on heel turn, but it needs something to keep it interesting. And I think what's really neat here, at least what I'm realizing now, is that they were acknowledging that that's what we want, but being able to fully articulate their stance on why that will never happen. Because he is that guy. He gets to make those Make-A-Wish kids happy. He gets to visit our troops and all of those things. And to his credit, he does amazing well, I don't know about amazing. I'm not in the armed forces, but he does a lot of stuff for the troops, and even the troops that don't really like him still like him anyway because of his dedication and his commitment to them, so to speak. So I thought it was a smart way for them to be like, look, we know what you want. It ain't going to happen. But it sucks because it's still not giving any depth to the character. It's like, it's the Hulk Hogan comparison is legitimate. It's just old, it's boring, it's stale, it's played out, and I want to see Brock Lesnar suplex John Cena through the ring.
14 times.
And then like 6 power bombs, just because.
Just because.
And it break his arms, break his legs. And again, it's not because I don't like the person of John Cena. I'm sure he's a really nice guy, but it's just that the character is old, boring, stale. And where are we on the raspberry meter as far as the staleness of John Cena?
Not too bad.
Could be worse. So basically, that was pretty much that promo in a nutshell. And at the end of it, he says that I'm here to fight. You know, almost kind of living that Finley gimmick, and I'm going to fight you. And then Paul Heyman, to his credit, is so amazing when he's like, I'm just an advocate. Please don't hurt me. I'm just an advocate. I'm a coward, and I can't defend myself. And then John Cena says, well, that wouldn't be right, so I'll tell you what, you got a week. Bring your beast, bring the Conqueror back, and if he ain't back on Monday, and instead of fighting him, I'm going to fight you.
Ooh.
Later on in the show, they go on to say that Brock Lesnar will be back next week. I kind of was hoping that Brock would not show, and that we'd either get another Paul Heyman guy, or more importantly, that maybe we just get to see John Cena beat the hell out of Paul Heyman just because.
That'd be funny. I'd watch that.
I would too. So, anything else you wanted to talk about regarding that whole thingamabob before we keep this ball rolling?
Yeah. Chad, let's keep on rolling. I'm tired of John Cena right now.
Keeping it rolling, we got Sheamus versus Seth Rollins. Awesome match. Well, you know what? What were your thoughts on this?
Okay, well, so it was Sheamus and... I'm sorry, my notes slipped.
No, it was Sheamus and Seth Rollins.
Seth, okay. Okay, so we ring, going against Sheamus, and honestly, I don't know much of this match. It
was kind of short.
I remember, yeah, they went to go have a cigarette or something. No, but I do remember. I do remember. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry. You were saying?
Go ahead. Take that ball. Take the ball.
Taking the ball. So Seth Rollins, Sheamus, awesome match. We've talked about before how Seth Rollins is one of those guys that can really just go in there and just have a kick-ass match with anybody. And he can do that with Sheamus. Sheamus very much plays up the I'm a giant, pasty Irishman, and I'm here to fight. And Seth Rollins is pretty much like the coward, but I occasionally do cool shit. Basically, it's a very solid match, very back and forth. No one had one definitive advantage over the other until Cesaro comes out. Now, Cesaro comes out, siren hits, his music goes on, and I'm getting worried because we had talked about this, how it seems like someone who is writing the segments gets very, very lazy and decides to essentially, hey, someone's going to show up. And just by virtue of him showing up, this other person is going to get distracted, and this other guy is going to roll him up, and that's going to be the win. And yay, easy. No, it's terrible. So they almost did that here. It came very, very close, but I liked the way that they did that because they actually didn't. They came right up to the line without going over. Cesaro comes out. Sheamus sees him, but then he's like, you know what, I'm a professional. Let me get back to just, opening up a can on this jabroni. And continues his match with Rollins. Cesaro, and then it goes to a commercial break, and then it comes back, and basically there is a point of distraction, but instead of a simple roll-up, it's Cesaro takes the title. So instead of, he's not being distracted by virtue of him showing up, he's taking something that's important to Sheamus, which is different, right? So he's taking that, and of course this is making the title relevant, right? Because God knows nobody really cares about the U.S. title, but it's something that's important to Sheamus. So he takes the title, and Sheamus is like, "Hey, fella, what are you doing?" And then, of course, in the heat of the moment, obviously being distracted, Seth Rollins is able to gain the advantage and then use his finisher as opposed to just simply roll him up. Afterwards, Rollins leaves, and then basically Cesaro comes in ring, or is about to come in the ring. Oh, no, excuse me, they have a tug of war. And then Sheamus lets go of the belt. Cesaro goes flying, and that's when Sheamus gets hit with a move that leads into the curb stomp. But after the match, Cesaro rolls in, takes the title, puts it down, grabs Sheamus, hits him with just a brutal-looking neutralizer. And you notice how most people, when they get into the neutralizer, they're like at about this angle? It looked like he had Sheamus like straight vertical. It was awesome. And then just did the move, and then basically held the title up high, and he said, "I'm your new champion." And then, yay, everybody goes home happy because we love Cesaro. How pumped are you to see Cesaro versus Sheamus as the Night of Champions?
Oh, that's going to be amazing. We got Sheamus, who's just a powerhouse, just a white horse, if you will, with red hair. And then we have Cesaro, who is pound for pound the strongest wrestler in the WWE, and an all-around awesome wrestler, period. And to see these two clash, I'm real excited. Really, I want to get hurt, damn it. I want to get hurt, damn it. So I'm so excited I had to say it twice. But let me tell you, I'm excited to watch these two get together and just fucking put on an awesome clinic.
Yeah.
How excited are you, Ted?
I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it so much so I can just segue into the next segment, which really wasn't much of anything. Lana and Rusev doing the anti-American gimmick. Even at one point, Lana starts references that I think it was Francis Scott Key who wrote the national anthem, wrote it there in Baltimore. And supposedly this was the anniversary of that. I didn't double check. I didn't do my research. I was busy researching something else, which we'll get to in a moment. But she basically starts to sing the national anthem, and people at this point don't know whether to boo or cheer because they're like, well, we should boo her because she's a bad guy, but she's singing our song, so we don't know. And then, of course, she turns it around and insults us, and then we boo. And then they play the Russian national anthem, which I swear to you sounds like they pulled it straight from the Hunt for Red October. Like they just played that same clip. But there was nothing that happened, right? It was just like, hey, we're going to come out here, we're going to talk shit, and then nothing. So it was kind of weird, and I think we can move on. Then we got one of my favorite parts of the night. I've been watching NXT faithfully. I love it. I think it's great because it's not a sports entertainment show in a sense that we're going to have storylines that wrestling revolves around. It's a pro wrestling show. We're going to have wrestling that revolves around storyline. Because the main shows are it's storyline centric, and the wrestling is just kind of a dressing, if you will. It goes around the story, where in NXT it's very much like, no, we're a wrestling show, and the story revolves around the wrestling. It's very refreshing, and it's only an hour long. It's actually pretty short, and they're up every Thursday, 8 or 9 or something like that Eastern. So it was the NXT champion, Adrian Neville, and Sami Zayn, who, if any of you watching paid attention to the independent circuit for the last number of years, he was wrestling under the name as El Generico. Yeah. And then there's just funniness about that. We'll get into that some point down the road. Teaming against Tyson Kidd, and Tyler Breeze. Tyson Kidd, if you don't know, he was you might remember him from the new what were they calling the New Heart Foundation? It was him and Davey Boy's kid and Natalia. What were they? Do you remember?
I don't know, but I know there was what's left of the Heart Foundation from the Heart from the dungeon.
Yeah, it was like 2009-ish, I want to say, maybe 2010.
Around about.
Well, yeah, man. Now, I've been singing the praises of these guys for a while now. As someone who hasn't watched a whole lot of NXT, I'm really curious, what were your thoughts on this match?
This match was off the hook. Let me tell you, I've never seen somebody explosive. I mean, it was like Daniel Bryan on speed. When he gets onto his groove, Neville was the same tenacity, speed, agility. I mean, the boy was badass. I'm waiting to see what they have in store for him for the future in the WWE. I mean, as of right now, I mean, before the show, we were talking about that finisher. It was a corkscrew shoot.
Oh, you're freezing.
It's like he didn't even jump. He didn't even jump for that corkscrew finisher.
And he, honestly, every week, he nails it perfectly. I've never seen him miss. I've never seen him mess up. It's phenomenal every time. And he does like a 450 splash. And then there's also that standing shooting star, where instead of it's just a standing moonsault, he stands on the one side of the guy, does the shooting standing, because I think he did it in this match, standing, does the shooting star, and moves forward enough. Oh, he did. Okay, I thought he did. I wasn't sure. He also does a standing corkscrew moonsault. So if if the guy's laying on the ground like this, he's standing with his back to him. He does the standing corkscrew moon. It's amazing. He's incredible. When Daniel Bryan comes back and they're on the same roster, he's going to give Daniel Bryan a run for his money. But yeah, and he's about the same height as Daniel Bryan, but he is just jacked to the gills. He's just very big for a little guy. But yeah, I mean, they put on a solid match, and this is the type I see every week on NXT. And then for those of you watching, if you're curious, check it out, man. NXT is awesome. It's leading up to a four-way where they're going to have at this special, which I think is this coming Thursday, tomorrow. We'll get into that down the road. Next up, we had maybe I'm not going to say how I felt about it, because I'm curious as to how you felt about not just Jerry Springer on Raw, but like they took the Jerry Springer show and just supplanted it right in the middle of WWE Raw with the Bellas. What'd you think about this?
It was a funny bit. I mean, it was really cool to see Jerry Springer on WWE trying to reconcile the twins in their little dispute, which like so over it right now. I am so done with the Bella twins. I mean, you just let them fight and just call it a happy day. But let me tell you, it was kind of hilarious him trying to put in his own input into WWE, and then we had the crowd yelling, Jerry, Jerry, Jerry. It was a hilarious bit. So, Ted, I'll let you take this ball because I'm so done with the Bella twins.
Sure, and there's not much. So there's not really much to say about the segment, and I actually wanted to take just a few seconds and give a little background on Jerry, our good friend Mr. Springer, because we all know him and grew up watching his trashy TV show, but a lot of people don't know that much about him. So a couple of fun facts really quick, just to kind of give some perspective and maybe some all-new respect for Mr. Springer. His parents, he's from a family of Polish Jews who basically fled Germany to escape the Holocaust, and at the age of 25, he testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee on ratifying the 26th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Basically, it's an amendment that makes it so that way you can't be discriminated against or prevented from voting so long as you're of age. Specifically, if you're of age to vote, and someone says, oh, hey, well, you're a young and you don't know what you're talking about, you can be like, 26th Amendment says you can't stop me simply because of my age so long as I am of said legal age. Also, he was a political advisor to Robert Kennedy, a brother of John F. Kennedy, up until his assassination later on in the same year, 1968. And he's also a former mayor of Cincinnati. Pretty cool. Back to the man drama. I thought I was going to hate it, right? I'm like, crap. This is going to be terrible. But I didn't. And I think it's only because the crowd was so into it. I'm torn, right? Because on the one hand, it's entertaining, but on the other hand, the wrestling purist fan in me is like, this is awful. It's not pro wrestling. But at the end of the day, it was kind of weird because I liked it overall up until the point where they kind of faked the Jerry Springer injury, and they're like, oh, he got tripped up amongst the Bellas, and they're fighting, and his leg is injured, and we have to take him out in the stretcher. Just because he's on the show doesn't mean we have to take him out on the stretcher. Or is it because there's some thought that Jewish people are that frail, or maybe, well, he is pretty fucking old now that I think about it. But either way, I see no point in putting this man on the stretcher. It didn't make any sense, and I really felt that it just took away from the storyline because you have the two Bellas feuding. Why put anything on Jerry as like, oh, poor Jerry, he got injured, unless that plays into it. I don't think it will, and I don't even really think it's worth it. Yeah, no, that's all I thought about that. So moving on, we got the Dust Brothers. I'm not even going to call them Los Matadores. They don't have the bull this week. They're just Primo and Epico. Are you okay with this?
Run with it, Ted. Run with it.
Primo and Epico. Stardust wins with an inverted STO, now called Dark Matter. The Usos, the cowardly bastards that they are, decide to jump the Dust Brothers from behind on the entrance ramp. That's literally all that happened. Any thoughts?
That was the highlight of the whole match. That was the highlight of the whole match. I mean, why are they giving them the jabonis?
I don't know.
Why are they giving the Dust Brothers the jabonis?
Hey, why the Usos faking an injury so they don't have to defend their title? That's what I want to know. Cowards.
They faked the injury because, Ted, you touch yourself at night.
Wait, I may have heard that out of context. I only heard that. Look, man. Look. I have an old fart sippy cup. I can't hear. One more time. Honestly, I didn't hear.
The Usos fake injury because you touch yourself at night.
Well, you know, I also touch myself during the day. Scratch that. I don't even want to get into that. Let's just say, well, we're not even going to say it. Does it count when other people touch themselves? Is that why? Or is it just me? They're singling me out? You bastards Usos. I know what you're up to.
It's singling you out.
Hey, quick question. Actually, no, I'll save that because it plays into the next thing. Tribute to Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers died. I think she was like 81 or some shit. Maybe I'm off by 20 years. I don't know. She died this week. She was a famous comedian. She's been featured on WWE programming. Most notably, she was a ring announcer. She was the special ring announcer for WrestleMania 2 for the not the main event, but the boxing match. That abortion of a wrestling match. The boxing match between Roddy Piper and Mr. T. She's also had wrestlers on her shows throughout the years. Chris Jericho on his podcast last week has a very funny story in which he hates Joan Rivers because she kind of screwed him and wasted his time. But it's funny, and you can listen in on podcast1.com. So is Joan Rivers that important to the key WWE demographic? Do we really remember all this shit? Is she that important? Or, and I'm going out on a limb here, is this really a desperation move by WWE to be culturally relevant and to kind of draw not attention to themselves, but for them to be like, yeah, hey, you know, we know what's going in the world too. You know, you can tie this into wrestling. Hey, we're here. I mean, what are your thoughts on this whole Joan Rivers segment?
Well, throughout the years, Joan Rivers she has influence in wrestling industry. I mean, she had wrestlers on her show. She's been on WWE. I mean, she's just a famous celebrity, supported wrestling in one way or another, and she was a comedic icon, legend, if you will.
Oh,
And
sure.
from Ted and Popple, the Wrestling Exchange, we send our condolences to her family and friends, and she will be missed.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way. I'm not downplaying Joan Rivers. She is very funny, and she was uh, what's the word I'm looking for? A trailblazer in a sense, because she was like really the first major female comedian to just come out and just do filthy humor and be self-deprecating, and she really helped pave the way for women like Sarah Silverman and the girl who used to date Dolph Ziggler. I can't think of her name off. It's Amy Schumer. Very, very funny woman, very, very talented, and we are thinking about her family. But that being said, I was just questioning whether or not it was that pertinent to the wrestling world. What do I know? I'm just an angry internet wrestling fan. Moving on, we have the pre-main event. We had Titus O'Neil, with my boy Heath Slater versus Adam Rose. This match was super fast. At some point, Heath Slater tries to protect Bunny. Bunny dodges it. Super kick. Rose gets Titus O'Neil with the party foul. After the match, the Bunny is a dickhead. The Bunny's a bully. All the more reason why I'm convinced that Adam Rose is really a heel, because this Bunny even frog splashed on Titus O'Neil. Papa, I want to play a game, because I'm sure you don't give a damn about this match. I want to know who you think is in that damn bunny suit.
I've never given it very much thought, but I'll play the game. So we got a double leg takedown. It has to be some sort of
It wasn't a double leg takedown.
wrestling kind of background.
Stop it. You're getting my blood pressure.
So
Turn
he has
red.
that. Well, we have to have some sort of wrestling background. If it's not anybody from like NXT brought in, and if it's somebody that may be on the roster and weird, I would go as far as even say Damian Sandow.
Oh man, if Damian Sandow is in the bunny outfit, I will take back everything I said about the bunny gimmick, and I will love it to death. I think I know who it is. Matter of fact, I think it's multiple people. I think last week it was Tyson Kidd, and I think this week it was Justin Gabriel. I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure. If I had to bet, I'd bet that. So, any thoughts you wanted to add to that before we get into the real meat and potatoes?
Okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes.
All right, we had a Renee Young interview. We had a Renee Young interview with Roman Reigns. It was about 10 seconds long. Moving right along. There's also a Brock Lesnar hype video for Night of Champions. And moving right along now to the main event. A rematch, so to speak, of the SummerSlam match between Randy Orton and Roman Reigns. Now, before we get into the ins and outs of what happened in this match and the overall issue and what may or may not have happened afterwards, what do you think about the match?
Well, I mean, this was a replay from pay-per-view. So going along with that, I mean, it was, you know, that I'm a Reigns fan. Roman Reigns, you know, that's my boy. And it started off bad. I mean, it did start off a little bit slow, but it started to pick up, not too bad. Or their signature moves off, if you will. But what got me the most, like on edge, was when Orton was signaling for somebody. He was like, "Come on, come on!" All of a sudden, we have a ring crew come out and start working on the ring, and all of a sudden, we see the cage come elevating down, if you will. They hook up the cage, and then we have Kane and Rollins coming out. They get the chair, but then they, for some odd reason, left the ring. They locked it up, and for some reason, Reigns was the one who was a victim at the end of this match. Rollins and Kane, they went in, and oh man, the curb was disgusting. I'm pretty good Reigns for selling it the way he did. So, I mean, my boy got beat down. So let's see what happens either on SmackDown or Raw to see if he recovers or he's going to take some time off. So, love the element of the cage. And they're just, I mean, right now with Reigns getting beat down, they're just up even more. And let me tell you, he's going to hold that gold. Sooner he's going to hold that gold. I provided my views on that main event. Please provide me with yours.
Mine's very similar. I thought it was, like you said, kind of an actual repeat of the match they had at SummerSlam. There was a couple of things that didn't seem right. One of them was Reigns has that drop kick, right? Where it's not, it's like a drop kick, except he does it on the outside, but he lands on the apron while the other guy's on the bottom rope. I'm starting to get really nervous at that move, only because he's one of a few guys that has that spot. He's got a spot like that. Orton's got a spot like that with the Hangman's DDT, and Sheamus has a spot like that with those beats of the ball sack, whatever he calls it. I like the idea of having positions or being able to apply a specific move in certain positions when someone's in the ring or certain areas of the ring, because that does make sense, right? You should have a plan for everything and a move for every move and a counter for every counter. So all of that makes very much sense. It makes a lot of sense to me. The problem is that they went to that Hangman's DDT spot like at least 3 times, maybe 4 times, and it just got really old really fast. Also, there was a spot where Reigns did his kick thing to the outside, but when he did it, Randy Orton had to roll over like 6 feet to get in the place to do it, and it looks bad. When they're good when they're good and done right, it's awesome, right? And when they play with it, like they go for the move and then it's blocked, and then they counter the counter, and then they do it anyway. So like that I dig, because you should know going into the match your opponent's moves and their signatures. And if you know this guy's going to get you in a Hangman's DDT, why ever put yourself in that position? So Sheamus is good for this, right? So he'll put a guy in it or try to put a guy in it, and he doesn't get it, but then does get it later. He's getting a lot better with it. And I really hope that they do that with Reigns, because I could get very sick of this move very quickly. Because if you see the guy is putting himself in the position for it, it's bad, right? But if it seems natural and it seems organic, like, because every time up to this point where Reigns has done it to someone, the guy, it basically happens so that way, now he's in this position, I can do this move, as opposed to, hey, roll over 6 feet so I can do that move to you. So speaking about the ring crew, right? Because we had mentioned I had some reservations about the steel cage match that they had plugged last week for this week, and I was like, why would they put that in the opening match? Why would that not be the main event? Because they could justify this particular ending. I have a question for you, and it's really all my thoughts on this. Given the storyline and what's taking place, I know I was hoping for this, but I'm curious if in the back of your mind were you hoping if Dean Ambrose was going to cut himself out from the bottom of the ring, like the ring would get cut and he would have been under there and climbed up and just whooped ass. I was waiting for that spot. I don't know. Were you?
That would have been awesome. That would have been awesome. Like Kane for years is coming up from the underneath the ring. That would have been perfect.
Yeah, and I'll paint the picture, right? I'll do you one better. So the three of them, Orton, Rollins, Kane, they're surrounding Reigns. Their back is towards the rest of the ring. They're basically in one corner. Then you see the cut. Then you see Dean Ambrose pops out. The whole place starts popping like crazy, but they don't bother to turn around. Nobody thinks to do it. And then by the time they turn around, boom, 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 just unloaded like a motherfucker. It would have been awesome. Please, WWE, give me a call. I got ideas for days, and I hate having a real job. That being said, that was my thoughts on Raw, and those were your thoughts on Raw. Before we get into our weekly Facebook question, we had a comment on last week's video. I had the name here, but I lost it. I believe it was, and if I'm butchering your name, I'm sorry. I'm getting it completely wrong. C. Shesser, I believe. Papo, do you know this person insulted me? Do you know what they said?
What they say?
It was not nice. It was está no bueno. They said that anyone who is a bow lever should wear a skirt. Let me tell you something, brother. I haven't worn a skirt since high school, and I'm not about to start now, and that's a shoot. So, now that that's out of the way, we got that Facebook question we got to get to.
Okay. So last week's question was, if you're a wrestling superstar, and I also put a disclaimer there, it could be any song, any artist, shout out. Okay, the first one we have on here is from Scott, whose song would be Enemy by Seven Dust, which is totally him. I could see him coming out to that song. So, Tobin. Next, we have John Ramlochin, Rambo. He's taking Shawn Michaels' theme music. I'm a sexy boy. Next, we have Ali. And Ali, his theme music given by Adema, which was like out there. Awesome. Then we have Jersey Bourne, who's coming out to Rob Van Dam's theme music. I could see that. And then have Suzanne Gardner, whose theme music be The Rump Shaker by Rex and Effect. All I want to do is a zoom and a boom boom.
I can see it.
Okay. And Jonathan Nunez, he came up with he got a complete story here, which would be either the final down by Europe or Tiger Ever.
What was
this
that?
This is a 13-year-old.
I heard
the
Final
Tiger
Count
by Survivor.
Nice.
I have actually messages back I got from Ann Laurentowski. It would be Blondie one way or another.
That's a good one.
So, yeah. So, Ted, any artist, any song, what would...
This was a tough one. This was a really, really tough one because it came down to one particular artist, or one band rather, and it took me days to figure it out. And the group's name is Five Finger Death Punch. Really, really good band. You should check them out. In the end, I had to go with a song titled "Wait Beneath My Sins."
What?
Yeah, it's like weight. It's like weight, like the weight of something because it's heavy, like my stomach. The weight beneath my sins. It's got a really good hook. You should check it out. It's real metal, if you will.
I thought, if you will. Okay. So, honestly, I thought you said the wings. For a second, I thought it said the wind beneath my wings, and I was like,
oh, that would be a killer entrance song. I might have to change mine to that now. You've just inspired me. I'm Bo Leavin'. That's the song. See, Chesser, you heard me. I'm Bo Leavin', and I'm wearing that skirt. Papa, is there anything else you wanted to add this week, or anything else we wanted to go over before we let these people go back to their day jobs, or stop ignoring their family, whatever it is that they're doing?
I would like to let you know my theme music.
Oh, shit! I'm a terrible person! I'm sorry.
Yes, you are.
I hang my head in shame.
You can lift your head up now.
Okay.
Okay, so my theme music would be Uptown Anthem by Naughty by Nature. It starts off with a piano and then goes into a keyboard, which every time I hear it, it hypes me up. And it's got an awesome hook. I recommend you actually listen to it at least once, but keep in mind for that piano. My second choice, it's not really the whole song, it's just the outro. And it's Window Licker. I don't know if you ever heard of the band, Window Licker?
No, but that's an awesome name.
It's called by the group Apex Twins, APEXTWIN. And then the last, I believe, just a couple minutes at the song, there's an outro that they play on Grandma's Boy.
Oh, I probably have heard it.
Listen to that outro.
I love that.
Listen, it's when the skinny dude was working in his office.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Dude came in and asked. That outro the song is called Window Licker and the Apex Twins. That outro I would use as my interest music.
Yeah, that is like a badass song. I know it's the one where he's in that like Matrix-like computer in the dark room, right? And he's got like all those screens and shit. Yeah.
Yes.
Very cool. Well, since I did not mean to cut you off because I'm such a terrible person, now we've got everything that we wanted to talk about. Is there anything that we wanted to plug or mention before we let these people go back to their regular lives?
I just want to send our deepest condolences from Ted and Papa Wrestling Exchange to Sean O'Hare and his family and friends. He was a powerhouse. He was also into mixed martial arts. And again, we'd like to send our deepest condolences. Other than that, I have nothing else to say. Thank you for watching. Anything you want to say, Ted?
The only thing I have to say is that, Papa, you and all of you people watching, you are the wind beneath my wings. I mean that.
Good!
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in to this week's episode 15 of Ted and Papa, the Wrestling Exchange, the most electrifying podcast in all of sports entertainment.
Electrifying!
Oh, yeah. All right, yeah.
Oh, yeah!
Oh, yes! Thank you very much. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell us how much you love us. Tell us how much you don't love us. Tell us if you want to see me in a skirt. I may surprise you. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Your face is priceless. Go to the Facebook page. Every week we put up a question, a little bit of fan interaction. Thank you very much. Drive safe, everybody, and good night.
Peace.
Are we hearing applause? I pressed the button. Can you hear it? Oh, Sound effects, everybody. Good night.